Hey guys, it's Team Megadeath here with all its members. Today we got a BT10 slash EX3 deck tier list for you. What's up, guys?
Hi.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Kevin.
Alright, let's get started with the tier list.
Alright, to begin, let's start with the not competitive decks. These decks are still good for only like casual play or playing for fun, but they're definitely not competitive for tournaments. We can start with Mega Gargomon.
Yeah, Megadeath is definitely not competitive. Just like doesn't it relies too much on your opponent having Digimon to suspend and then getting benefits off of that.
I agree.
Yeah, to be honest, I've never seen that in locals, so.
Yep, me too.
Yeah.
I played it a few times casually, so against top tier decks, and it doesn't do really well.
No, it does not.
Alright, next up is probably Minerva Loop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The deck just struggles in the meta against all the high DP Digimons, because you have to swing for your loop. Because if you just loop and not swing, you're pretty much doing nothing but getting memory. So yeah, I think that's what struggles.
Yeah, it seems like the turns last for a long time too, and you don't really get much out of it.
Yeah. I think it needs
if,
to
if you try to loop and your level 5 dies, your loop is just done there,
Yeah. Needs a lot of setup.
Yeah, I agree.
Alright, next, Justamon. I love the Justamon deck. Like, the top end's really good, but I think the issue is getting into your Justamon. Like, the Justamon line is really bad, and you need so much setup.
I feel like you need a lot of tamers set up.
Yeah.
It also takes a long time to build that stack too, right?
Yeah, but like once you get your Justamon off, it feels really good. But that's really rare.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be really good if it did something like a Shine Greymon where like when it evos it plays like a tamer for free. Like it helps like build the line but also set up those tamers, but since it doesn't do that, you have to like kind of choose between like evoing or playing a tamer,
The only card
The Cyberdramon helps
Cyberdramon, but when you're digivolving to Cyberdramon, you're leaving your stack vulnerable and it'll just die.
Yeah, I don't have any protection for that stack. It's pretty expensive to play it.
Alright, next would be Beelzemon.
Yeah, I think the problem with Beelzemon right now is it's just not fast enough in the milling, and it requires it requires you to mill the right cards at the right time. Otherwise it doesn't do all too much.
Yeah, there's too much chance in that since you need to mill the right cards.
Yeah, but it definitely will be better once the support comes out.
I agree.
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay, next is the 4 Great Dragons, I believe.
Yeah, so I have playtested the 4 Great Dragons a little bit. Like you're still stack building this deck a little bit into the Goldramon, but at the same time you're still really piece reliant on the option card Trials of the 4 Great Dragons, which there's only 4 of it, but you do have a lot of searches. But the main problem with this deck is just the other top ends of the deck are just too weak for it to really function in this current meta, because they pretty much don't really provide you much besides one big body or just popping something. But in this meta, there's a lot of protection when you try to delete something.
Yeah.
I feel like Goldramon has doesn't it need the other 4 Great Dragons to really pop off too? So it's just it relies on the option cards, but also relies on the top end too.
Well, Goldramon helps you return one of the option cards from your trash to your hand if you're missing it, and but you will also need the other cards in the trash to resolve some other effects that are pretty good in Goldramon.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, I don't think I've ever seen anyone play it, and I never played against it.
Yeah, it's just the ratio for the deck is just not that good.
Yeah. Okay. I think
next up, Sakuyamon.
Yep.
I feel like the problem with Sakuyamon right now is all it does is DP reduce, but a lot of times people keep their stack in the back, so it doesn't do all too much, and it requires you to have Rika, Without Rika, it's really hard to use your plug-in cards. Because your plug-in cards, you need tamers to use it without meeting the color requirements. So without the Rikas, it's really tough.
Yeah, I think for Sukuyaman, you also need a lot of setup with tamers and the option cards,
Yeah.
your stacks.
Just
And
takes
also
too
doesn't
long.
do a lot of damage either. Unless you get like the plus check plug-in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
this
it's kind of like a Justimon, but it's the Digivolving stack is a lot. It feels a lot better than the Justimon.
Yeah.
it's definitely upper on this list though, because I feel like when I see it's like when Sukuyamon pops off, it does really crazy combos. So that's why I think it's like definitely a little bit higher up on this list.
Yeah. Okay, I think next be Blue Hybrid. I think I enjoy playing Blue Hybrid, but I think it's really hard for like its main play, which is to like freeze stuff, because it only freezes Digimon with no Digi evolutions. But a lot of the decks have the X antibody option card, which can't be stripped. So I think that really like makes it hard to play in this meta.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the only reason why I feel like it's upper on the non-competitive is like you see so many people play variants of like Blue Hybrid, like Blue Hybrid Leomon and other different variants. So I feel like that's why it's a little bit higher, but still, it's definitely not as competitive as what it was.
Yeah, I think it's still on the top of not competitive because tamers that are in the deck are still pretty good compared to other decks in this tier. Like Sora and Joe is still pretty good. Provides you a lot of memory when your opponent doesn't have a Digimon with Digi Evolution Source.
Yeah, also Davis is also just a really good searcher. Tommy's really strong, but unfortunately it was limited to one.
No.
Unfortunately.
Alright. Okay, and then I think that concludes the non-competitive decks in our tier list.
Yeah. So onto the tier 3 tier list. In this tier list, these are some decks that are playable in the competitive scene. Like they'll probably get like a game or two, but they probably won't place in your local tournaments if there are a lot of tier decks.
Yeah. Okay, I think the first deck would be Shoutmon.
Yeah, we put Shoutmon here because a lot of the support that it had just got limited. X4, the core part of the
Yeah.
deck to help you swing for game and stuff.
Also, Sunrise Buster got hit.
Yeah, it allows you to clear the board less, and you get less tamers on the board as well.
Yeah.
It's just not as good.
Yeah, X4 just allowed the deck to have such like a loop OTK factor, but now that you don't have it, it's just so much slower, and you're forced to play X5, and it's just not as OTK. So definitely not as competitive.
Also, some decks run a lot of floodgates, so it would slow your combos a lot. Like all the Saichimons will not allow you to digicross.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Alright, next be Ragnalord.
I think Ragnlord is pretty decent. If you're like drawing the right, if you're like playing drawing the right cards in a way, because they're level 5. I mean level 6s. Besides the Ragnalords, allow you to play other cards that you reveal from the top deck when you attack. If it's like play cost of 7 or less, which allows you to DNA Digivolve towards it and play Ragnalord. And Ragnalord is a pretty strong stack because it gets splits and you have a lot of Digi Evolution source below it. And it also would trashes the top card of your opponent's security. So you pretty much have a really big stack that your opponent really can't do much anything to it besides like some bouncing.
Yeah, it's just that I feel like it's just not as competitive because when I see Ragna players play, it just takes a quite some time to go into the Ragna since it's a level 7 Jogress. So it takes some time to get the setup, and usually there's so many other decks that can just get rid of the bodies on the board. So it just really sets your deck behind.
Yeah. It doesn't really have like any other like good ways to like help you besides like get memory choke, because you don't really run a good efficient tamer in it besides probably Izzy. But besides that, Izzy's also still not that good for Ragnarlord because sometimes you're just playing a 4-cost tamer, which isn't really that much memory efficient.
Yeah. Okay. I think next would be the Dragon Link stack with Hina.
So Dragon Links, I like the deck. I have playtested it a lot. It pretty much has the same problem with all these tier 3 decks, where it's just its top end is pretty good, but it's really reliant on certain pieces. And for this deck, the certain piece is Hina, which is a 3-cost tamer, but it allows you to Digivolve while playing their effects from it, and the effects are pretty great in the deck.
Yeah, you really want multiple Hinas on the board to really like pop off with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also is not that good sometimes, because if your opponent doesn't really have a Digimon, you can't really gain a lot of memory from the Hina that provides it.
Yeah. Also, if you don't have any Hinas, I think this deck's not really playable for you. You just
No.
lose.
Yeah.
Pretty much you have to hard slam all your high level Digimons in order to get the effects on.
Yeah.
Okay. I think next be Beelstarmon.
Yeah, Beelstar right now is very bricky. A lot of times you want that Eismon to get in there just to cycle through the deck and get more of those 7-cost option cards in the trash. So it takes a long time, and there's a lot of setup to play the Beelstar for cheap. So yeah, it's just not as good right now.
Yeah, there's also some top decks where they have protection, so even option cards won't be able to answer the stacks.
I think it's also really security reliant too, in order to help you really stall out the game, because
Yeah.
you need like most of the time I see Eismon players Beelstar player bring out an Eismon and then swing it and then building up another stack to trash even more option cards, which is pretty much really slow, because you need at least like 2 turns to do that.
Yeah, it just takes too long.
multiple turns.
Yeah. Okay, I think next would be the Purple Red Imperial Dramon. Purple Red Imperial Dramon right here.
So I have played this deck in locals, and I think it does pretty well against some top tier decks, but it's just again, it's really reliant on what you have in your grave, because you need the opposite piece of each level 4 and level 5 in your grave in order to progress into your top. And sometimes it also really bricks, because you don't really play a lot of searchers besides your rookies, and you only run 8 of those Warmons and Vmons in your deck.
Yeah, I feel like it just requires a lot of setup.
Yeah. Alright, next Yellow Hybrid.
Yeah, I've seen I've seen a couple of decks top of Yellow Hybrid, but I still feel like it's not that good. You know, losing the Jet Sylphie makes it a lot harder to recover for cheap. And then there's not as many option cards where, you know, that's like a security bomb in Yellow Hybrid. You only play like maybe 1 or 2 Wyverns, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's definitely not as good as it used to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the good thing about Yellow Hybrid is you could run Venus Money, and that stops a lot of top tier decks, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think Venusmon pretty much saved this deck from being in a tier 3 compared to non-competitive, because it stalls out really long while you slowly chip away at your opponent's security.
Yeah.
With your yellow hybrids.
Also, it was better when Sunrise Buster was at 4, but now that that card got hit, you know, there's a lot less options for the deck. I feel like.
Yeah. Okay. Next on the list, be Blue Flare.
Yeah, Blue Flare is not as great competitively, just because there's a lot of good ways to counter it. Just by like not playing multiple bodies can counter the deck, so it's really easy to play around.
Yeah, especially like with the like higher tier decks, you'll typically see like them either like being a 1-stack deck, and so Blue Flare just has a hard time against those matchups, just because most of the time it relies on freezing wider boards, and so it's definitely easier for 1-stack decks to play around it.
Yeah.
I agree. and there's also really no way out for the like if you're playing against a purple deck, they run the Digimon. There's no really way out for blue flare that and those deck in the deck because you don't really want any deletion.
There's no removal for it.
Yeah.
Alright, next Commandramon, D Brigade.
Commandramon is not too bad, but it's also not that great. A lot of times you just rookie rush, but sometimes you're not able to get the swings off as they either bounce it or just kill your rookies. There's the stacking version, and it's pretty difficult to get the stack off because you need certain pieces for it to actually go off. So it's just difficult.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty good. It's like not that bad, and it can like get some games off of the top tier decks. It's just like really fast, and
Yeah,
its security is usually really good.
Yeah, you also have some good option cards in Commandramon. You have stuff like Iron Fisted Onslaught,
Yep.
and what's the other
Ultimate
card?
Flare.
Ultimate Flare, yeah.
Yeah, I think Ultimate Flare is probably like the key saving of the deck because a lot of decks don't really have any Digivolve protections in it, so it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that concludes our tier 3. Now on to tier 2.
So tier 2 decks are going to be like decks that you will see more at locals. They're definitely more competitive, and you might be able to see them top like once in a while, but they don't top consistently. It definitely takes a good player to make these decks shine a little bit more.
Yeah. Alright, I think first on the tier 2 list would probably be Armor Rush.
Yeah, I feel like Armor Rush is in like a similar spot as Commandramon. I feel like you just rush them, and you also have some really good options in that deck, like Megadeath, and you can run Sparks and all that. But the biggest problem is there are a lot of decks where they could just delete small bodies, like Armor Rush. Like stuff. There's also stuff where you can de-digivolve and just pop it, so you don't really get the Armor Purge too.
Yeah.
That is true, and you can just bounce it too, so you can deny the Armor Purge.
Yeah. Alright, and I think next on tier 2 would probably be Imperial Dramon. I love the Imperial Dramon deck, but it's not as good as it used to be in this meta, but it still can be good, and it's also kind of like Commandramon, where it can like get a lot of games off the top tier decks if it's fast, which is something it's really good at, and you also run like Megadeath and stuff to help stall out games.
I think it's pretty good. It can still have that OTK factor like the previous sets. I think it's just sometimes it's also you need the Stingmon and XVmon in order to go into your Imperial Dramon, so sometimes you only run 4 each, so it's pretty hard to it'd be difficult if you don't really find your pieces.
Yeah. Okay, I think next on the list would be Machine Dramon.
So Machine Dramon, this is probably my most played deck in this set. I think Chaos Dramon is really good addition to the Machine Dramon deck because it gives it another top end and it gives Machine Dramon more protection because now it has bounce protection in it and it allows it to add more level 5 sources under it from your trash or from your hand. But the only problem in this deck is you run a bunch of level 5s where most of the time, sometimes your hands will be just swarm with a bunch of level 5s and you pretty much can't really play the game because you don't have a good way to unbrick it. But now there is but the top end for this deck, once you got the top end, you pretty much have a pretty good board state because they can't if they try to delete it, you can just strip 2 sources, and if they try to bounce it, you can also just strip 2 sources. And the regular Machine Dramon stack also can't be DP reduced too as well. So there's a lot of protection.
Yeah, like once you have the stack out, the protection that it has, like to strip 2 sources, is just so good. Like if you don't have a de-digivolve mechanic in your deck, you're gonna have a really tough time getting around the Machine Dramon or the Chaos Dramon.
Yeah. Okay. Next on the list, I think it's Masteamon.
I think Masteamon's a pretty strong control deck. It enables you to play really strong option cards like Flame Hellsec and Chaos Degradation, because it's a purple and yellow deck, and it just controls the board really well. But the biggest problem is you can't break, and Gatomon is also a really important piece in the deck, and if you don't hit it, you're pretty behind. But even if you do have it and you hard play it, it gives your opponent a lot of memory to work with, so they probably will have a way to get rid of it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also you pretty much brick a lot too as well, because you don't really run a lot of, you're not really digivolving in the back. You're not really building a stack. Most of the time you hard slam your Gatomon to really to cycle through your deck while searching for your other pieces like your Magna, Angelmons, or the Lady Devies to build into your Mastemon. And then even though if you get into the top end, you're still passing over a lot of memory because you're most of the time you're slamming the Angelmon or the Magnamon for its full cost 6 and 7, and you're passing your opponent for like 5. And the stack doesn't really have any protection, so they can just delete it, and you pretty much left with nothing after giving over like 6 memory.
Yeah, you run a lot of level 5s, probably around like 10 to 12, so it can get really bricky in that sense.
Okay, yeah. Next would be Galamon.
Ooh, Gallantmon. Gallantmon's so good. I really like Gallantmon. It's just so fun to play. Being able to, like, this deck, compared to other red decks in the meta, is not as OTK. It definitely has more clapback. Being able to delete and then getting benefits off of deleting, like gaining a lot of memory. Memory floodgates like Jumon and Madoki Betamon don't really affect the deck too much because you have so many ways to delete those bodies. But the main issue of the deck is definitely it not having any protection, or the DP threshold very low. But you can get around that by trashing their security with either the Crimson mode or the X antibody. But if you were to swing, there's a very high chance it could die because the DP is too low, or it just doesn't have any protection.
For sure.
All right, cool.
Okay, next, I think it would be Dark Knightmon. This is probably my most played deck in this set. I personally think it's tier 1.5. It's really good. Like, you can be really offensive with it, but it's also really good at defending and like stalling out games against the top tier decks.
Yeah, I think it's just so good. Like, I love the mechanic that it has of like replenishing its blockers. Like, just the act of blocking, and if it were to die, you could just have another blocker is so good. And then it has so many great tools for it being black, like Ultimate Flare and the option card that lets you play out a lot of
memory boost.
Digimon. Yeah, exactly. Just such good option cards.
Yeah, I feel like the problem with Dark Knightmon though is it has trouble closing out a lot of games.
Yeah.
The top end isn't really a great top end in my opinion.
Also,
it's just really there for the on deletion effect.
Yeah. Also, when your Dark Knightmon isn't deleted and you don't get to save your sources or reuse them or replay them out, you just like fall behind a lot.
Yeah.
And you really need the Nene for the blocker effect too. Really.
Yeah.
But you can pretty much stall it for the Nene playing a Dark Knightmon for 4. Digicrossing it for 4, I believe.
Yeah, but definitely the de-digivolving and popping 5 cards or less is what makes this deck really good.
Yeah.
Alright, okay. I think next on the list would be Ancient Greymon.
Yeah, Ancient Greymon, it's like kind of like the definition of like an OTK stack deck. Like, you mainly want to build your stack in the back, and the more sources you have, the more checks that you'll have. And then you basically swing for 5 checks and it doesn't trigger any of the option cards in security, and then you find a way to swing for game either through Omnimon or Hybrid for game. The main issue of the deck though is that it's just really reliant on stacking and finding those pieces. And also, I also feel like it's kind of reliant on the promo Goonie, letting it to digivolve for less. but also that promo Goonie lets it be more aggressive. Just being to like Evo from a level 4 to a level 6, and that level 6 having 3 checks is just so strong. But again, like this deck is very much like the definition of like an OTK stack deck.
Yeah. Okay. For our last tier 2 deck, I think it would be Alphamon.
Yeah, so Alphamon is again another like almost OTK deck. The reason why I say almost is because like it definitely has gotten hit with the Dorgray, and the Dorgray allowed it to get so many checks, unsuspend, and then do those checks again. But the deck has seen revival thanks to what's it called? One Zoop Go Punch, something like that. Lets you get a plus check, blocker, and reboot, which is so very, very good. It lets you go more aggressive on your turn when you bring out the stack, and then also it lets you be a little bit defensive after you bring out the stack. But the main issue is it is to the setup. You need to set up those tamers and have the pieces you need to go for that one turn kill, but at the same time, once you do it, it's just hard for your opponent to come back.
Yeah, I've played against Alphamon a lot, and then I think ever since they limited Greymon to 1, I think the deck has a really hard problem of finding a level 5 to get into your level 6, because now you only run like one of the Greymons, but you don't run the X antibodies no more. So and then you're running 4, I believe,
For
of
Greymons, yeah.
for the Greymons. So that's only five level 5s in a 50 card deck. So it's to get into your level 6. So it gets really hard to find your pieces most of the time, and it's also tamer reliant. And now it's like but I think Alphamon's still really good because you really have that. Once you get into that Oryuken, even though if you don't OTK that one turn, you just have a really big stack right there that's hard to kill because it has blocker, retaliation, reboot, and all that. And your opponent has to find a way to deal with it, because if they don't, once your next turn comes around, you pretty much win the game.
Yeah.
I think this deck was like really good because like it abused Cool Boy. Like Cool Boy was literally like it searched for everything, and then back in the day when you ran the Dorgray and the Dex Dorgray, you had the option to trigger it regardless of the level, if you had the Dex level 5 or Dex level 4. But now that Dorgray is limited to 1, you don't run Dex at all, and so it's really hard to trigger Cool Boy because you have to trigger it through the level 4. But Cool Boy is such a great tamer still, and it definitely still has that Cool Boy abuse in this deck. So
be limited to 1 Cool Boy.
Yo,
yeah,
they need to hit it.
Yeah.
Alright, moving up to tier 1.5. I think these are the stronger decks. These are some of the decks where I would be pretty comfortable taking to my locals, and you'll probably find good success with these decks in your locals.
Yeah, okay. First up would be Gaiamon and Blackboard Gray.
Yeah, so I mainly play War Greymon, and then when I don't play War Greymon, I play Black War Greymon. And the one issue I have with Black War Greymon is that it just costs a lot. A level 5 to cost for 4 is a lot, and a level 6 that costs 4 or 5 is definitely a lot. It requires you to be a lot more strategic, but just because it requires more strategy doesn't mean that it's not good. It just costs a lot more. More control-y, but also can OTK. Very, very good still. Just not quite as tier 1, but super, super competitive.
Yeah, I definitely played against a lot of Blackboard Grays at locals this meta. Okay.
All right.
I think next will probably be Dobrik.
This deck is pretty fun. It's an on-play effect, and you digicross it. So you usually typically play for 3. So it's a 3 cost. It's pretty cheap. It usually goes for that OTK effect, and for this deck, you just cycle through a lot of your cards just to find the pieces. It's pretty good because you can't really kill it if you on-play it that turn in OTK, so you can't really bounce it or just delete it. It's bad because its weakness is blockers, and there's a lot of blocker decks at the moment, so that's why it's a 1.5.
Yeah, and also if you just don't hit your Dorbeckmon, you can't really do much in the game.
Yeah, and I think there's also a problem in Dorbrick where it has too low of a DP, where now a lot of decks have a lot of top ends where their DPs are around like 14, 15, where Dorber can't really get over it, and with Hero, which is
Yeah.
at 14, and they can't do that OTK factor no more. And if it once your stack dies and you don't really check through all their security and pressuring your opponent, you're using 5 cards in your hand. You're really depleting your hand size to really go into another door brick later on. So
Yeah. However, I do think it is really good in this current meta against all the other OTK decks. Just because of how fast it is.
yeah, and the other OTK decks don't really have an answer to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think next on tier 1.5 is probably Examon.
Yeah, Examon's just so good. Definitely a raid boss type of deck. It's just like against certain matchups, it just once they get into the Examon, the deck, like the game is just unplayable. That's how competitive it is. Just because of the Slayer Dramon effect, making you forced to attack, and then most likely that Examon will have blocker and evade, and so it'll just force you to attack it. It'll block and evade it, even if it has more DP, and if it doesn't, then your stack will die. And so like decks like that, typically like the stack, like for example, like Ancient Greymon or Alphamon, just stand no chance against Examon just because of the core mechanic of the deck.
Yeah, but I think Examon does suffer from bricking. If like you don't have your pieces to go into Examon, you're kind of screwed for the whole game.
Yeah, you don't really have a lot of searches in the deck besides the new rookie, I believe, the Dracomon.
Yeah. You also have Davis to search for both of blue and green, but that's about it.
Yeah.
But I think the most what makes this deck really viable is I think it's able to jog rest from your level 5 without needing level 6, so you can just play another level 5 from your hand and then jog rest into Examon and have a really pretty much a big stack, forcing your opponent to attack while if you ever bring out a stack.
Yeah. Okay. I think next on tier 1.5 is probably Jesmon. Jesmon's probably my second most played deck in this meta. I really like this deck since it like spams out the board, like goes really wide with Sister Mons. Also, I think the top end's really strong with GX. Typically, like once you get GX out and your opponent can't really deal with it or get rid of it somehow, you probably win the game off that. But I do think Jesmon does suffer from bricking a lot. Even though you have a lot of searches, like if you don't have a lot of your pieces to go into your stack, you're kind of just screwed for the whole game.
Yeah. And you really want to hit those sister mons too when you swing for those searches.
Yeah, you need like a lot of the pieces. But once you do get to the top end, it feels really good.
Yeah, I feel like Jesmon, like the deck, the cap is so high. Like it's just like it's the like the best combination of like a really strong stack deck that can go super wide, and it's just like, and it has such a great offense and then also great defense, like the Sistermon giving it reboot, and then Jesmon GX itself being blocker, Sistermon's being blocker, having decoy. It's such a great offense, and then on your opponent's turn it's such just a giant wall to get past.
Yeah. Also,
Gekumon.
Yeah.
For return bounce protection as well.
And DP protection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, like Jesmon gets so much DP that I can swing over anything, even unsuspended Digimon. Like it was probably like gets up to like 20k sometimes.
But I think the deck has one weakness. Is probably Death X, because you go so
Death
wide.
X too.
Yeah, you go so wide, and your opponent can probably just play Death X and clear all your sisters, and your Jesmon has no really great protection against other cards now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next is Security Control, probably the strongest control deck right now, and the most annoying deck to play against. It does struggle against decks that go really wide, like Bloomlord. Bloomlord just goes super fast and wide. And another problem is it can break a lot, and you need to find your Magnas early, or it's hard to get the recovery and the cycle from the Flame Hellscythe.
Yeah.
And another problem is a lot of red decks can just Tekken DP, and that would just counter all your security cards.
Yeah. Also, I think in like local tournaments, you tie a lot, so you don't really win.
That's that's why we're putting it at 1.5, not tier
Yeah.
1, because you're not really winning the tournament with the deck most of the time.
Yeah, you need to really be you really need to know like every matchup, how to play Secon. Like you need to like sleep, eat, breathe Secon in order to like win constantly. But like it's the games just drag out so long, and both players are just so tired. But it's such a competitive deck.
Yeah.
90% of the time, your win con is to deck your opponent out too. You don't really swing for a game. You just try to deck them out before you deck out.
Yeah, that's too long of a process with a 50-minute timer mostly in
Yeah.
the local scenes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that concludes our tier 1.5. Now into tier 1.
Kevin, you want to talk about tier 1?
Yeah. Tier 1's probably just like, this. If someone's playing this deck in your local tournament, they're probably winning. It is always tops, always wins. These decks are OP. Okay, I think first on the list, probably Bloomlord.
So I'll be talking about Bloomlord. Bloomlord is a green deck that it's really strong this meta because you can really go off with really little memory. You can probably go off with 2 memory and build a really wide board with all the right pieces in your hand if you're playing the combo right. It's really combo reliant, but it's not as linear as most OTK decks in this tier list. Because you can do a lot of different options, because with the new addition of Hydramon, you can instead of playing Bloomlord, you can just play the Hydra and then forcing your opponent in a difficult position, because whenever they attack now, they will be losing memory. And Bloomlord can also OTK if you have a wide enough board and you also already have another rookie. You can play pretty much 2 Bloomlords and then swing for all the security, and then if you have 2 other level 4s, you can Chimera for a game.
Yeah, but I think Bloomlord does suffer from like memory chokers and like the Pomomons or option cards where you can't play out Digimon by effects.
Yeah, and in the deck there isn't really any good way to clear it besides playing a Santi to swing over it, or if you run the Grande Cell or the Hydramon.
Yeah. Okay, and then next on tier 1's probably Grandis.
So, Grandis, probably the best green deck in the format, I believe. It's really fast, and since you run multiple Mimis in the deck, you can just rebuild another stack if your first stack dies, and you're pretty much playing everything for really cheap. And you most of the time, if you already have Mimi out and you have boost, you pretty much OTK that turn if you have the right stack. So I think, and being able to swing Digiburst and swing for 18k, you pretty much swing over any Digimon in the security. Its only weakness is probably option cards, because you don't run any protection in it.
Yeah, but it's definitely like really fast to answer for most decks.
Yeah, and you can also suspend your opponent's Digimon while checking their security while having the piercing a cool monitor as well.
Yeah.
So you're clearing board while checking security. So.
And I've been saying it, but like Mimi is such a good tamer in the deck. Like it's such an MVP tamer. Set your memory to 3, but not only that, but like if you guys haven't checked out Darren's Grandis deck profile, he's talked about this a little bit in that video as well. But Mimi lets you bring out the stack and then also make up a new one. So if you don't have an ideal stack, you could just bring out the stack and then hatch an egg and then rebuild that stack. And so you're kind of building. It's kind of like a factory. Like you're just building Grandises like with those Mimis. And so the Mimi is such a good tamer in that deck.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, next on the tier 1 list, probably War Greymon X.
Yeah, so Warray is going to be my most played deck in this format. I played this deck a lot with a bunch of different ratios and a lot of different techs, and this deck is very, very strong just because of its the X antibody engine and Cool Boy abuse. Like Cool Boy just makes this deck so good just to find its pieces. Most of your pieces are going to be mainly X antibody cards. But Cool Boy lets you draw, gain those memories, but also the top end, just being able to pop a body equal to the DP, swing for like 4 checks, gain the memory back, and then potentially like swing for game is just so strong. It's such a strong OTK deck, and it has like almost an answer for almost every matchup, but there are some matchups that are definitely a scoop. Like I would say like Jesmon or Sekon in some cases, but in most of the matchups, it's very winnable.
Yeah, I think the one of the only like counters to it is just blocking it, so it can't gain the memory back.
Yeah.
Okay, and probably the best deck in the format's probably Metal Gar X.
Yeah, it's just super consistent. Probably the most consistent OTK deck with all the draw power it has from the promo Garurumon. You could probably OTK, or at least get 5 security checks with just your level 5, and if you have the right memory and the right cards in your hand, you could probably just Digivolve into your Metal Guard and just swing for game right after. It has a lot of good option cards you can run too because it's a blue deck. You know, you can run Ice Wall, Hammer Spark on that. And then you can also play Cool Boy, and that helps you search a bit, but sometimes bomb decking the promo Garurumons and Warrior Garurumons can feel bad, but if you already have all your pieces and you have a Cool Boy out, you could just gain a lot of memory and even more draw from it to find your pieces and just OTK.
Yeah, I feel like every one of us has definitely played against Melga at one point in tournament, and it's definitely a very tough matchup to win against sometimes, just because of the tools that it has, and also it is an X antibody deck, so it has a lot of the benefits of being an X antibody deck. Just the bounce and also the battle protection is just so good. But it also takes a really good player to really top with the deck. And so it's not like an autopilot deck. You definitely need to understand board state and the game itself. So
Yeah.
I think it's just probably the most consistent out of this whole all the decks in this tier list, because you just run a lot of you run a good amount of searches, and it's just you don't really need to go into your level 6 compared to most of the decks here, whereas like you're required to go in your level 6 to your top end to really have a good board control, a good board state. But in Metal Guard, you only need the Wear Groom promo or the X antibody to really put pressure on your opponent. Yeah,
So yeah, that's basically gonna be it for our Team Megadeath tier list, guys. From not competitive all the way to tier 1. We'd love to know what you guys think about our tier list. So leave comments below what you agree, what you don't what you do disagree with, or do agree. But that's gonna be it for today's video. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you think, and I hope you guys like the video, and I hope you stay tuned for the next one. But other than that, Team Megadeath out. Bounce.